The doctor says you have cancer.
You have cancer.
Now what? What do you do now?
Treatment.
What treatments? Where?
There's a place called Hope.
Hope Lodge. A home away from home.
The cancer journey can be pretty confusing. It can be lonely.
That's why we're here.
We're here to help.
We can get through this together.
Welcome to Giving Hope a Home, a program of the American Cancer Society. I'm Dr. Bill Hocking, Marshfield Clinic medical oncologist, and with me today is Jolene Specht, Hope Lodge manager, and Jewel Quell, administrator.
And we have a good show for you today. We're going to continue on with part 2 of A Day in the Life of a Hope Lodge Guest, and we're going to talk about Relay for Life. And I know it's going to be a great show, because whenever I wear a good pair of shoes, it's really a great show. And I'm telling you, they're great. You know what?
You know, there's nothing like a great pair of shoes. In fact, I'm certain that's one of the reasons you hired me.
Yeah.
Put a lot of thought into the shoes I wore the day of my interview, and now here I am.
And really, it actually had more to do with your values that you hold and obviously your skills. But our whole team at American Cancer Society Hope Lodge is really a team of staff who are dedicated to the guests that we serve. And it's such a pleasure for us to be able to give them that first impression and a lasting impression that we're there for them and we're going to help them through this journey. If you're just joining us, we are from American Cancer Society Hope Lodge in Marshfield, and we're here for free lodging for guests who have to travel to Marshfield for their care.
Our staff has a great camaraderie. We develop a strong connection with our guests and welcome them in as family whenever they come in to stay with us.
Yeah, and I've heard that from so many of my patients, that they really feel when they stay at Hope Lodge, it is like going to a home. They feel very comfortable there with both the staff and the patients that they encounter who are sharing the same kind of trip that they're on.
Yeah,
Right.
it really is a great place. And today, Bill, you're going to be here talking with us about a few things.
We're going to talk today about hematologic malignancies, which are blood cancers. And we'll be back in just a minute to begin that discussion.
When I was first diagnosed, I was frightened to death. When I started chemo treatments, I decided to shave my head. When I came home, my 3-year-old was here and she was scared. She ran away from me. She was crying. She said, "I only love Daddy. I don't love you anymore." And I was devastated. The next day, I called American Cancer Society.
How may I help you?
I spoke to some really wonderful woman on the phone who cried with me.
It can be pretty tough when you get those calls, but we do still try to be their strength.
She said, "I have books for you," and it changed our whole outlook.
What we do here absolutely matters, and it has a huge impact on the lives of the people that we talk to.
She gave me my family back.
We try to be there with you throughout your entire cancer journey.
American Cancer Society brought hope in so many ways in my life.
My best birthday ever?
Performing to a sold-out crowd on my first world tour.
Playing 18 holes in Scotland.
A spa day.
Surrounded by my kids and grandkids. And the world's biggest bowl of ice cream.
Riding my custom chopper down the Pacific Coast Highway.
I think I'd want just a little more time with my mom.
1 out of 3 people will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. Whose birthdays will you save? Let's finish the fight. Make a tax-deductible donation to the American Cancer Society today.
We're back on Giving Hope a Home. Our focus today is on blood cancers. Now, Dr. Hocking, when I think of blood cancers, I picture the actual red blood cells traveling through our veins. How does that work? What is that?
Well, I do too. I think of I mean, blood is really in every part of our body. It's in every organ. I mean, we're made up a lot of blood. So what is a blood cancer?
That's right. Well, the blood cancers, or again, the hematologic cancers, are a spectrum of disorders that involve either the bone marrow, the bloodstream itself, or in some cases the lymphatic system, the lymph nodes and the lymph channels.
So there's different types of blood cancers, I'm guessing. Probably a lot of them.
There are many different types of blood cancer. You can think of them in general terms as being the leukemias, and those are disorders that arise in the bone marrow and involve both the bone marrow and the bloodstream. A disease called multiple myeloma, and a spectrum of disorders that are variants of that, that also begin in the bone marrow and can affect the bones as well as the bone marrow, and can have effects on a variety of organs. And then the lymphatic cancers, which would be primarily the lymphomas that are primarily in the lymph nodes, but again can also involve other organ systems. And then there are some rarer disorders that, frankly, most people would not be familiar with unless they'd had some personal experience with them. And those are disorders such as myeloproliferative neoplasms and myelodysplastic disorders. The myelodysplastic disorders are disorders of the bone marrow, where the bone marrow really stops functioning normally, and sometimes those can also evolve toward one of the other malignancies, such as acute leukemia.
Now, we've learned from previous episodes that cancer by nature is a corrupted cell. How is that different from a blood cancer?
Well, that's really not different, and I think that actually some of our initial understandings of the biology that is involved in malignant diseases really came from the blood and bone marrow cancers, because it was easier to study those tissues. They were so easily accessible. So we know again that usually there are a sequence of mutations that are involved in the cell that gives rise to the cancer, either in the bone marrow or the blood or the lymphatic system, similar to other types of cancer. The thing that is different is that by nature, particularly the leukemias and multiple myeloma, are really disseminated diseases at the outset, at the time they're diagnosed, because of the fact that they're in the bloodstream. As Julene pointed out, there's blood in every organ, and that really, by definition, makes these more disseminated, and that comes into play when we talk about treatments.
So are there different kinds of symptoms that I'm guessing that would be related to a blood cancer that might not be related to, let's say, a tumor or other type of topical cancers?
We kind of distinguish blood cancers and solid tumors, although there's clearly some overlap. For instance, lymphomas can really be like a solid tumor as well. And there can be somewhat different symptoms that patients will present to their doctor with these. Because it's affecting the bone marrow where your blood cells are produced, the symptoms often relate to some deficit in blood cell production, either in red blood cells, which might make the patient come in feeling very fatigued, lack of energy, short of breath, things that relate to being anemic, or it could be related to abnormalities in the white blood cells, such as fever or infection, or to the platelets. The platelets are a cell in your blood that help protect you from bleeding, and if your platelet count becomes too low, then you might have bruising or other types of bleeding. The other thing we see fairly commonly in the blood cancers is what we would call systemic symptoms, particularly fevers, sweats, heavy sweating often at night, and sometimes unexplained weight loss, which of course can also be a symptom of the solid tumors as well.
So then, what types of treatments could somebody expect if they have a blood cancer?
Because these are, as we talked about, more disseminated types of cancer, local treatments like radiation and surgery are usually not applicable. There are some special circumstances where they might be, but for the most part, we're talking about treatments that are systemic. So chemotherapy treatments and some types of biological treatments. One of the other things that is interesting, I think, is that we now talk about targeted therapies, therapies that have been designed to specifically attack an abnormality within the cancer cell. And really the first targeted therapies were developed in a disease called chronic myelogenous leukemia, and that's probably the most successful targeted therapy that has been developed. A drug called imatinib, or Gleevec, was developed about 12 years ago now, and it has really revolutionized the way we treat patients with chronic myelogenous leukemia, and it has revolutionized their prognosis, which is now far, far better than it was before the development of that targeted therapy.
That's amazing. I mean, just the knowledge and research alone that has gone into science these days is just fascinating to me. And how, like you said, how far we've come from leukemias and all of that. Now there's so much.
Well, and I think you said the key word there, and that's research. I think that without research, and of course American Cancer Society has been an organization that has tremendously supported medical research and research into the causes and treatments of various cancers. Without that research, we would still be back in the 1960s. You know, I started practicing in the 1970s. It's incredible the distance that we have traveled since then in our ability to treat many of these diseases. We still have a ways to go with some diseases, but particularly in many of the hematologic blood cancers, we really have made tremendous progress.
Now, I know we've talked in the past a little bit, but so stem cell transplants, that's related to blood cancers,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. That's a good thing to bring up here. Because the bone marrow is frequently involved with these cancers, a transplant with stem cells, either stem cells from the patient themselves after the patient has been treated, or from another donor, what we would call an allogeneic transplant, can be helpful in treatment of these diseases. Here in Marshfield, we have a fairly large autologous stem cell transplant program, meaning transplants that are done with the patient's own stem cells. And you see many of those patients at Hope Lodge because they often are required to stay either in the hospital or very close to the hospital for a 3 to 4 week period after their transplant while their bone marrow is recovering.
And we do see quite a few patients with that. And it's very interesting because they'll come and talk to us, you know, at the front desk or in my office and tell us that we couldn't do it today, so we have to come back in a week or whatever, waiting for their numbers to go up. What does that really mean when they, in order to do that?
Yeah, well, there can be a variety of reasons that you might delay that, either that their recovery from a previous treatment wasn't complete and they were still having some side effects that either were affecting the blood counts themselves or some other organ function. It's very important that you have good organ function at the time that the transplant is performed. And really what you're doing in that setting is giving very high doses, usually of chemotherapy, sometimes combined with another type of therapy, to try to eradicate the remaining malignant cells that are present. And then you restore the bone marrow function by giving stem cells back to the patient. And patients are often very surprised when they learn that's actually just given as a transfusion. It looks just like a blood transfusion. But the stem cells have a way of knowing where they should go in your body, and they home to the appropriate location, which is mainly in the bone marrow, and then regenerate over 2 to 3 weeks a normal bone marrow. But during that period of time, patients are very vulnerable to either infectious problems or bleeding, and so that's why we keep them very close, and they need to be checked on a daily basis and have those parameters monitored.
And that's what's so wonderful about being able to be here for the patients. Here in Marshfield, they can come, they can stay, and patients will stay. They'll stay for 2, 3, even 4 weeks, depending on what it is that they need in order to get that transplant fully recovered in their system. And so it's really amazing for us to be here for the guests, and we're very, very thankful. If you need to travel at all for treatment, make sure that you look up Hope Lodge if there might be one in your area. And with that, I'd like to talk a little bit more about research. So I want to ask you a question. What is purple, has 1,000 feet, and lasts for 24 hours? But first, we want to continue to follow Mo and Audrey Curry as they journey through a day in the life of a Hope Lodge guest.
So I asked at the desk, what is a patient navigator? And they said, oh, would you like to talk with her? And just right away they called. I asked if she could help us find a furnished apartment. And she said, why don't you look at Hope Lodge? It'd be so much better than living in a motel for 4 months. We didn't know anything about it. She gave us the address and said, why don't you just stop by? But we thought we'd just drive by and see what it looks like. And we decided to pull in and come inside. We came in, fireplace was burning, TV, this nice lounge area, and then she offered to show us around.
Went up to the second floor, and she showed us the room, and it was lovely. It really was. We went downstairs, we saw the laundry area. Totally floored us completely, and just the cleanliness and the atmosphere, it was warm. That's the only way to put it.
The Hope Lodge affords patients who need complicated therapies to have them here. The notion that they can stay here with a caregiver. I think some patients would forego aggressive treatments if they didn't have the luxury of Hope Lodge to be 2 blocks from the hospital. So I think people can think differently about what they're willing to do, knowing that they're not going to have this huge housing expense or hotel bill when they're done, in addition to the toxicities of treatment, but also just the expense of being sick in general. So it's one less thing for them and their family to worry about.
We really felt good knowing that we were able to come back to this place after seeing everything, the library, the kitchen set up, and the laundry facilities, just everything you would want, as Audrey says, for a home away from home.
As sick as you are sometimes, to be able to lay in the bed and just have your caregiver, if you need a cup of tea or something, come downstairs and bring it up to you without having to go anywhere.
Hope Lodge really does become their home away from home if they have extended therapies, and it's not uncommon. A radiation therapy course will be anywhere from a month to 6, 7 weeks. So in that period of time, they're exposed to other patients who might be going through some of the same treatments. They're exposed to the goodness of our community, because almost every night some church group or some volunteer group brings in a meal.
I think the other thing too that surprised me is how much the community is involved in this. We had Lamar's last night, and then I think there's going to be pizza from Scotty's, and there's pizza from Pizza Hut, and there's pizza from Domino's at times, and then the Northridge Church with their home-cooked like meals. When you've just had chemo or radiation and try to go out for a meal, how difficult that would be, and how fortunate we are to have a place like this and the community like this. You have your own, refrigerator space, your own freezer space and for each room, and think about what if you had to go out to a laundromat? at night and get things like that done. And it's all right here. Computers are here. We can go check our email and kind of keep up with things. It's great what the facility has to offer. The friendliness and the upbeat of all the staff. Everyone, I haven't met anyone in the staff that hasn't been friendly and helpful and just really great with us. You're with other people that are sharing the same experiences, and really they're upbeat, and they're in the library and they're working puzzles and they're watching TV, and you get to meet them. You meet at dinner.
The closeness that you end up developing in friendships with other residents, because everybody here is basically in the same boat.
In fact, we still correspond with some people that we've met in the past.
Emotionally, boy, when I think back, he had come in, he said it's always good to give good news. He had taken his finger and he pointed to an area on the scan, and he looked at me and he said, this was where the tumor was. At first, I didn't know what to think. It was a shock, because was the operative word. It was no longer there. The tumor that they found in January is not there. And I firmly believe in up above and all the prayers and well wishes, cards, excellent health care. Even though there were some pretty rough times, but oh, Hope Lodge. How can you even put it into words? It's almost a feeling what it means to anyone who has the good fortune to be able to stay here.
Were it not for Hope Lodge, I don't know where we'd be.
It has been a godsend.
Welcome back. What a great story, and what a privilege it was to be a part of it. We are one of 31 Hope Lodges in the nation, serving thousands of cancer patients each year, and each guest has a very unique story. The Currys were just one of them.
It's amazing. The guests that we serve in Marshfield are actually not even from the area. Actually, one of the requirements to stay at Hope Lodge is that they must live 40 miles or more away. And each year we see patients from every county in Wisconsin. Matter of fact, we've seen patients from 27 other states here that have stayed at the lodge, and that's all part of them coming to the clinic or the hospital in this area. So it's really fascinating that we serve patients not from Marshfield. And what's interesting about that is that none of it would be possible without many of the volunteers that help us across the nation. And you say, well, how does that work? They help us by participating in Relay for Life, and that's an event that happens across millions of people across 20 different countries actually that participate in that. And so that money is raising money for American Cancer Society, going back to the research that you talked about.
The American Cancer Society Relay for Life is a life-changing event that gives everyone in communities across the globe a chance to celebrate the lives of people who have battled cancer, remember loved ones lost, and fight back against the disease. At Relay, teams of people camp out at a local high school, park, or fairground and take turns walking or running around a track. Because cancer never sleeps, relays are overnight events lasting up to 24 hours in length.
And we grabbed a camera, teamed up, and went out to last year's Relay for Life, and we took a few shots. Here's a sneak peek at what you can expect at a Relay for Life event.
Relay for Life of Marshfield is a community-based event that's run primarily by volunteers, and it's open to the community. And we've got a wide variety of activities that people can participate in. You can join a team, you can join us as an individual or as a caregiver or as a survivor. Basically, it's open to anybody in the community, and all are welcome.
I relay because my daughter 4 years ago got cancer, and it really hit home to us, and after she completed her treatment, we wanted to give back. And our hearts just got into relay, and we've been a part of it since.
I relay because 9 years ago I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and on my last day of chemo, the family flocked me with flamingos at my house. So the flamingos are a mainstay at Relay. They've been with us every year.
We still strive to give back for research, so no one has to hear the words you have cancer.
It was a really great event with so many dedicated people, heartfelt connections to the cause. There was an auction to raise funds, different informational booths set up around the track. I even got to get a chair massage, as you'll see, when we went there.
To join a Relay for Life event in your area, log on to www.relayforlife.org.
When we walk together, we are bigger than cancer. Join the American Cancer Society Relay for Life and let's finish the fight. Sign up at relayforlife.org.
At American Cancer Society Hope Lodge, we provide free lodging to cancer patients who need to travel for treatment. Guests often prepare their own meals in one of our 4 full kitchens. Dining areas allow guests to congregate over meals, and they encourage and support one another. Meals are often provided by area restaurants and organizations which make dinner time a welcome retreat after a long day of treatment. We want to thank these area organizations and restaurants who participate in our monthly meal program for the guests of Hope Lodge. If your organization, group, or restaurant would like to donate a meal for the patients at Hope Lodge, please contact us at 715-486-9100.
In case you missed any of our topics today, you can watch this and previous episodes on marshfieldtv.com. Or for more details, go to www.cancer.org, where you can search for anything cancer-related, including information on donating to the American Cancer Society Hope Lodge.
Thanks for joining us today on Giving Hope a Home, and we hope you'll join us on episode 5 coming up in the future.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.